Welcome to a deep dive, and today, well, we're tackling some really specific source material, stuff you'd normally find buried in engineering docs. We are focusing entirely on one piece of hardware today, a really technical linchpin for video. The Thor Broadcast H-HDCOAX-4, that's 4CH HDMI to QAM modulator.
Right. It definitely sounds like jargon. And, well, it is. Our mission here isn't just, reading off specs. It's about pulling out the key knowledge from these dense documents.
Okay.
We want the shortcut, basically. Understanding what it does, sure, but also who sells it, what it costs, and even looking at the weird gaps, like things they assume everyone just knows.
Yeah, from the nitty-gritty of quadrature amplitude modulation all the way to the checkout discount code, we're going to cover it. But let's unpack this. And maybe surprisingly, let's start not with the tech itself, but the logistics. How do you even buy a box like this that costs, what, thousands of dollars?
Right. That's a good place to start because even this kind of high-end gear has a sales channel. So this modulator, the HDCOAX-4, it's sold by a company called HDTV Supply, Inc.
HDTV Supply, okay.
And their documentation, it really leans into their credentials right away. They say they've been in business 24 years, copyrights listed back to 2002. They mention things like HDTV Supply strategic partnerships and Thor Broadcast products, establishing legitimacy.
They definitely sound confident. The source material actually calls them an exceptional top-quality store rated by Google Shopping.
Yeah.
That's quite a claim to stick next to RF frequency specs.
It is. And they even give a specific contact point if you have product suggestions, which is kind of neat. 833 Wolfpack.
Wolfpack, okay.
Yeah, it suggests a pretty direct line to their, technical customers.
All right, let's talk money then. This is specialized stuff. The model number, HDCOAX-4, is listed as in stock, new, and it comes with a 2-year warranty. The MSRP is listed at $2,700. That's substantial.
It is, but the documentation makes it really clear that's not the price you actually pay. There's a today's price highlighted right there, $2,250.
Okay, so a decent chunk off already.
Yep. And then they add another incentive. There's an active discount code mentioned, 5% off. You use that at checkout.
For another 5% off the $2,250.
Exactly. So for anyone learning about this market, those are, really practical details. And the last thing they mention is free USA shipping.
Which is always nice, especially for rack-mounted gear that might be bulky.
Right. So the logistics seem pretty straightforward. Established company, clear pricing, discounts available.
Excellent. So now we know where to get it, roughly how much it costs.
Right. Let's
dive into the core of it. What is this QAM modulator? What does it actually do to justify that price tag?
Okay, so this is the main function. The HDCOAX-4, it's described as an all-in-one device. It integrates MPEG-2 encoding and modulating.
Right, encoding and modulating.
Think of it like a translator for signals. It takes a modern high-def video signal, usually coming in via HDMI, and it converts that into a specific kind of radio frequency, or RF signal, the kind that can travel over like old-school coaxial cables.
Ah, okay. So it's the bridge, connecting newer digital sources to maybe older existing wiring infrastructure.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. And in terms of what you can plug in...
Yeah, what are the inputs?
Well, the sources say pretty much any standard source. Set-top boxes, satellite receivers, CCTV cameras, even an antenna signal, apparently. This specific model has 4 HDMI inputs.
4 HDMI.
Okay, plus it also lists 4 CVBS inputs. That's composite video, usually for things like closed captioning data feed.
Gotcha. And for this kind of video conversion, especially for broadcast, latency, like delay, is always a big deal, isn't it?
Huge deal. And they highlight that. They promise ultra-low latency. The spec sheet says between 50 and 100 milliseconds.
But it's 50 to 100 milliseconds. Now, for you or me, that fraction of a second might seem like nothing. Why is that number, that low latency, so important for the pros?
Well, because in a professional video chain, latency adds up. Every device introduces a little delay. If it gets too high, things get out of sync. Think about a live broadcast. The control room needs to see what's happening almost instantly to switch cameras correctly.
Right. Timing would be off.
Exactly. And even more noticeable for the viewer is lip sync. If the video lags too far behind the audio because of high latency, well, it looks terrible. So keeping each component's latency super low, like under 1/10 of a second here, is really vital.
Okay, that makes sense. Puts that number to perspective. Now, quality-wise, the video encoding is MPEG-2. It supports up to 1080p at 60 frames per second. Pretty standard high def.
Yeah, standard but solid. And they also get really specific about the audio, which kind of shows the level of detail in these docs.
How so?
Well, it handles MPEG Layer 2 AAC and Dolby Digital AC3. But they don't just say that. They list the bit rates, like 192 kilobits per second for MPEG-1 layer 2, 128 kilobps for AC3.
Okay, hyper-specific numbers.
Exactly. You probably don't need to memorize those, but it tells you this box is built for precise, reliable audio streams alongside the video. Aspect ratio is standard 16.92.
Now, the thing I found really interesting, given how specific its job is the global compatibility they built in.
Yeah, that seems to be a major selling point highlighted in the material. It comes, and I quote, standard with every RF modulation standard built in. Meaning it's designed so you can basically take it anywhere in the world, plug it in, and it should work with the local TV standards without needing different hardware versions.
Wow, okay. So this one box speaks all the different TV languages, electrically speaking. Let's quickly list those standards. That alphabet soup is kind of the backbone of global TV, isn't it?
It really is. So first up, DVB-C, digital QAM. DVB is digital video broadcasting. C is for cable. That's common in Europe, parts of Asia.
Yeah.
Then ATSC. That's the Advanced Television Systems Committee standard. That's North America, U.S., Canada, Mexico for digital over-the-air TV.
Right, I've heard of ATSC.
Then DVB-T. Same DVB family, but T for terrestrial. That's for over-the-air signals, also huge in Europe and many other places.
Okay.
And finally, ISDB-T. That's the Japanese standard, which has also been adopted in most of South America. So yeah, cover the globe, pretty much.
That is genuinely impressive flexibility for one piece of hardware. But the documents do make one very clear limitation, right? Something it doesn't do.
Yes, absolutely. They're very explicit. This unit features CATV RF output only. That means cable TV radio frequency output. Critically, it has no IPTV output.
Meaning it won't stream over the internet.
Exactly. It's not designed to convert your HDMI signal into an IP stream for distribution over networks or the web. It's purely focused on sending signals down traditional cable lines. Stays in its lane, so to speak.
Got it. And just to round out the picture, physically, how's it controlled? Looks like a standard rack unit.
Yeah, standard 19-inch rack mount. For control, it's mainly through a web-based interface, like a web page you log into. That's also how you update it. But it does have an LCD screen and buttons on the front panel, too, for direct control.
Okay, web and physical. And for the real tech heads, the documents go even deeper.
Oh, yeah. If you really want the details, they're there. They specify the QAM constellation 1632, 64, 128, 256 QAM, which is about how much data gets packed into the signal. And the RF frequency range it operates in, 100 to 1,000 megahertz. It's all laid out.
Which actually brings us perfectly to maybe the most curious part of this deep dive. Looking at what isn't in the documentation, given that incredible level of detail, QAM constellation, specific bit rates, global standards, the simple stuff they leave out is kind of fascinating.
It really is, and it speaks volumes about the intended audience, right? The level of assumed knowledge is just baked in.
Take the term QAX.
Yeah, it's right there in the product name, H-HDCOAX-4. And it's used in descriptions like TVs over coax or IP.
Right, it's fundamental. But you read through pages explaining the difference between DVB guard intervals or symbol rate.
Super technical stuff. And yet, nowhere in these documents could we find anything telling you how to actually pronounce the word QOAX. No phonetic guide, no clarification, nothing.
So they assume, if you're reading this, you already know if it's coax or coax or just short for coaxial.
Pretty much. It's such a basic term within the industry that explaining it or even how to say it is considered totally unnecessary. It's a real marker of, like, if you have to ask, this document isn't for you.
It's a funny little paradox in technical writing. But that wasn't the only missing piece, was it? We stumbled onto something else related to the retailer, HDTV Supply.
Yeah, this was kind of random. While digging through their site info, which is all about selling this specialized gear, we found a whole section, or maybe just a category link, labeled podcasts.
Podcasts, right there alongside modulators and cables. I mean, what? Why would a company selling ultra-specific broadcast hardware also be involved with podcasts?
And that's the mystery. The sources confirm the category exists, but provide absolutely zero information about it. Nothing on what the podcasts are about, who makes them, what the topics might be.
Or even how you might, make one yourself, which you might expect if they're promoting the medium.
Exactly, just the label. We have incredibly detailed specs on RF modulation, but this whole area of audio content creation is just a black box mentioned in passing.
You have to wonder what a podcast from a QAM modulator supplier would even cover. Deep dives into MPEG-2 byte rates, troubleshooting your constellation diagrams.
Maybe latency weekly, who knows? But the fact that it's mentioned yet completely unexplained alongside things like HDMI and fiber optics is just strange.
It really ties back to that theme, doesn't it? Meticulous detail on the core engineering, and then these surprising gaps on things maybe considered secondary, or perhaps just too basic, like pronunciation, or too unrelated, like podcasting itself.
Exactly. It highlights what knowledge they prioritize and what they assume or ignore.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. We've journeyed into the Thor Broadcast H-HDCOAX-4, a very technical piece of kit, $2,250 list price adjusted, globally compatible modulator. And we've even covered the exact details of buying it from HDTV Supply, a 24-year veteran in the field.
And the key takeaway for you, listening, shouldn't just be the specs themselves, but recognizing how these dense documents, these standards like ATSC, ISDB-T, DVB-C, they really define the invisible infrastructure of our media world. Understanding that alphabet soup means understanding how video actually travels across town or across continents. It's the language of how we connect visually, globally.
That's a great way to frame it. So let's leave you with this final thought stemming from those information gaps we found. If a supplier provides documentation so detailed it specifies QAM constellations down to 256 QAM and latency to 50 milliseconds, why mention podcasts with zero context? And why use the term QAX without any clarification, assuming everyone just knows?
Yeah, what knowledge is considered so foundational or maybe so irrelevant to the core engineering task that it gets left out of such an expert-focused resource?
Is the silence on QAX about the knowledge they assume you bring? And is the silence on podcasts maybe about content they haven't quite figured out themselves yet?